By the time Chase and Celia arrived at her parents' place, she had already fallen asleep in the back of the taxi. The events of the day had been incredibly stressful and she was extremely exhausted. After helping her to bed, Chase carefully closed the bedroom door and walked down into the living room, where she suddenly found himself face to face with an angry Patricia. She was wearing an unhappy expression, but Chase was well used to it by now. He hesitated before asking how to have it. "What's wrong, Patricia?" She stared at him coldly and said,
"I've already asked, but you refused to answer me earlier. What is your relationship with Sasha?"
He sighed. "She's a childhood friend," he replied casually. She didn't believe him at all.
"A childhood friend?"
she asked skeptically.
"If she was just a friend, why would she send us such an elaborate gift?"
"It's just money," he said half-heartedly. "I know several million seems like a huge sum of money, but for others like Sasha, it was just a drop in the bucket." After a moment, she cut straight to the point.
"I'm warning you, Chase, if you so much as touch 1 ounce of her gift, I'll never forgive you. After all your years of not providing for this family, it's what I'm owed."
He understood. It was not to touch Sasha's gift. But then it dawned on him. Patricia was keeping the gift here at her home rather than at the bank or the safety deposit box where it would be safer. "What do you think in keeping the money here?" he asked. "What if Celia finds it?" Patricia suddenly sized him up a few times, reluctantly believing his words suspiciously. Suddenly her expression softened. She grabbed Chase's hand with a smile and said passionately,
"Please call Sasha and invite her over to a meal when you have time. I'd like to thank her face to face."
"I'd bet you'd like that," he thought to himself. But he wasn't in the mood to deal with Sasha right now, so instead he said, "Patricia, I'm pretty busy."
"Fine. Forget it then,"
she snapped. Her face fell down into a frown, and she dropped his hand. The moment she realized that Chase didn't intend to help with this, she no longer needed him.
"Then just get out,"
she said impatiently, pushing him toward the front door.
"You're no longer welcome here."
Slamming the door in his face, she rubbed her eyes, trying to get the image of him as far away from her memory as possible. She didn't want him staying at her house to eat all of her food and provide nothing in return. At the same time, on the other side of the door, Chase had to laugh to himself at his mother-in-law's uncanny ability to change her demeanor so quickly when she sensed someone could be of help to her. He walked down the steps, confident that Celia was now safe to bed. There was no need for him to linger around the family's home, so he settled to take a taxi back to the hospital to look after Dottie. Halfway down the block, he was stopped by a man in a suit. Even though it was late at night, the young man was still wearing sunglasses. He lowered his head politely. The young man walked then to a nearby Porsche parked on the side of the road and opened the car door. He turned to Chase and said, "Your aunt has asked me to invite you to Brinkley Manor for a get-together." Chase froze. Was his aunt in Laudervale? Frustrated, he looked up into the sky and recalled a memory long since blurred. If not for his aunt, he would have never left his family. While it was true that he'd left home because of his engagement to Sasha, that was only part of it. The other part was because of what his aunt had done. After all these years, why was she here? Chase puzzled for a moment, unsure of what to do. In the end, he got into the Porsche and let the driver take him to the easternmost edge of the city. Brinkley Manor was built on the western slopes of the Cascade Mountains. There was only one property in the entire mountain range, which had been declared a national park decades ago, limiting construction. The property had been grandfathered in. Residents in Laudervale referred to it as the City in the Mountains, but no one knew who owned it. And while people traveled up there every year to peer through the gates, it always appeared absolutely empty and yet perfectly lived in. Decades back, the owner had gathered a big gathering at the manor, with hundreds of luxury cars parked on the side of Blue Mountain Road for miles. A limo had traveled up and down the road to bring visitors up the mountain to the house. With such a showing, It was hard to imagine the level of influence and power that the owner of the property had. Less than 30 minutes later, the Porsche pulled up to the entrance of the Manor. The gates opened and they drove into the castle's entrances. Yes, the castle. There was no other word to describe it. The Manor was gigantic, though in reality it was no bigger than Kearney Plaza. The only difference was that the plaza had been built in the last 2 years, while the Manor was one of the oldest properties in the city. After they pulled up in the front of the building, a refined steward escorted Chase from the car into the sitting room. "Mr. Rothman," he politely said, "our lady has been waiting for you for a long time." He then quietly retreated into the shadows. Chase adjusted his breathing, slowing his pace, before pushing the door open. The sitting room wasn't particularly big, but it was especially quiet. There were many antique books on the bookshelves in both English and in other languages. The mahogany furniture was very graceful. Not far away, a light flickered from inside the closet. Suddenly, Chase's eyes met those of a woman dressed in luxury clothing, with a lazy expression on her face. She was leaning against the desk, casually reading a book. Next to her was a cup of coffee. "Sit," she said to him. She gestured to the velvet armchair across from her. It was Evangeline, his aunt. She was the wife of his father's younger brother, Thomas. After his father's disappearance, Chase had lived with them both. He knew his uncle was to be meticulous and his methods vicious. Similarly, his aunt was obsessed with power and willing to pay any price for it. Chase had left because he was tired of fighting her. Now that so many years had passed, he figured she was even richer and more powerful than before. "Auntie," he finally said with a calm voice, "have you been well?" Evangeline closed her book and looked at him with a devilish smile.
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.